Hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. We're going to do a stamp along, you and I. If you are ready with your stamps and you feel so inclined, we're going to be combining a couple of things. We're going to do a cave, kind of a sea cave type of situation where the cave is framing our composition in here. I don't remember doing a cave on Stardream or a darker paper yet, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to incorporate that, and I've been thinking about some kind of horizon type of seaside setting. Been inspired by, I don't know, a photograph or something that I saw recently. And I thought I would use the island set here for that. I'll use, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 of these little small islands out of this, and we'll use that little sailboat, I think, too. I think that would be a perfect scenario for this. Now, being that it's on this darker paper, I'm, just naturally envisioning some kind of nighttime type of scenario here. Maybe a twilight with a horizon glow here. Well, let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to be using Brilliance pigment inks on this paper. Now, if you don't have the Brilliance, you might want to try just your standard types of pigment inks, like a VersaFine Clear or something like that, or for plain VersaFine. There's a lot of different types of pigment inks out there. These ones are designed to dry faster, though, so you might be running into kind of a situation where you might heat set. Pause this video and just heat set a little bit before you start doing certain types of applications, just to avoid your impressions kind of smearing, like when we do tonal applications, shading, so on and so forth. Okay, all right. So I might even need to do that myself. Okay, now I find that for very soft applications of media, I don't know, I can't think of an applicator that would be softer than something like cotton, okay? It's just, that's the characteristic of cotton. I happen to be using a 100% cotton, I don't know where it says that right here, 100% cotton. There were 200 in this bag, and I think this bag cost like $1.50 or something like that. So, I use these several times even at that. I don't know, I'm just kind of, I use things until I can't use them anymore, so frugal that way. But I would go for the 100% cotton. The synthetics just don't work for me. I would say at all, but I don't know, maybe you can force it, but it's a real kind of struggle for me. It just doesn't wick the moisture out of the pad, and if you don't have anything on your applicator, or you have very little, it's hard to transfer it. It just makes kind of sense that way. So all right, now I have the boulders with Lichen here, and this is the Brookside Boulders. I could just use even just the one stamp, and that would be fine too. The ledge stamp works really good for this purpose too, but being that it's on darker paper like this, I just think that the boulders with Lichen, I'll grab the ledge here. See, this one's just lighter, okay, and if I stamp that down there, it would be hard to see against, such a dark foundation color. So I'm going to go for this one right here. And let's get started here. Now what we're going to do, we have some interior objects that we're going to be stamping in there. But if I stamp that first, I could work around it. Well, actually it would be easy to work around that with the cave. I don't know, I guess you can go either way. But this is the Seaside Cove small, all right? Now what I'm saying is if I do the foreground first, I can mask this off and then just stamp that wherever I want it to go, all right? Okay, so this is a half page. What is this? This is a 4 1/4. by 8 right here. I thought we'd need a little bit of space rather than doing it on kind of a, a quarter page card and having it really condensed to try and get the different things in there that we want to. All right. I might need to re-ink my pad here. I usually have to. The Brilliance pads dry fairly quickly and need re-inking a lot. Okay, well, let's see. Let me do... Oh, okay, I'll do the roof first of this, okay? I'm going to use this as the top portion. I guess you could use this like that, but I don't know. I think the boulders with Lichen kind of makes more sense in terms of a roof type of structure. Okay. And we're overlapping, changing the angle slightly, okay? You can change it slightly or you can change it a lot. Okay, see how that's going? That's creating that opening right here. I can almost hear the crashing waves in this kind of scenario. Go like that. And we'll come down here like this, I think. Let me see. Actually, let's take this one and I'll position this now somewhere like that. Okay, and go about, how about we'll put this one over here. I'm going to tilt it a little bit, kind of to go along with this kind of sloping type of format here to kind of create a rounder opening. I'm going to stand up for this one too, just to get enough pressure. The larger the stamp, the more surface area it has, so you want to get plenty of pressure right in the center there. Okay. And let's go back to this one. I already inked it up, but it needs to be inked up a little bit more, because like I said, this is a faster drying ink. Let's go about like so. All right. I didn't hold that down. Remember, these iridescent papers they're fairly sealed off, okay? So you might want to hold the stamp down a little bit longer to get that ink to transfer. Okay, now I am stamping all of this into my scene, and when wet, your inks are going to look darker on this cardstock, or paper. And you could potentially spray it and it'll get darker though too. But just to kind of expect it. Some people, it was kind of a surprise. Yeah, see, I held that down longer and more ink transferred. Okay, so we have our good opening right here. See, that's lighter, but that's okay, because we're going to fill that in anyways. All right, now, I could come back in and kind of close that in a little bit more. That might be kind of more interesting, huh? Let's do some masking types of exercises here. Okay. What we're going to do is we're just going to rip the paper towel to get some kind of natural kind of arcs in here, like that, that. Sometimes you rip a paper towel and it just goes straight. You want to kind of rip across the grain, okay, rather than with the grain. Sometimes, I don't know, sometimes there's grains to paper towels, the way they kind of lay out the fibers and whatnot. Okay, but when we do this right here, it doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to undermask, okay, so that we don't get these gaps in between the objects. So it'll be something like that. I'm leaving probably about, I don't know, maybe just under a 1/4 inch of it showing. Let's go back to this one, okay. And this will create a little bit of depth within the imagery too, which is good. Okay, let's go about like that. The designs are designed to overlap and to blend in, so if they're overlapping into the other design, no big deal, because that's what it's supposed to do, to make it nice and seamless. All right. Okay, now looking at this, I have a feeling that yeah, I might benefit too by heat setting this a little bit. If you're using the Brilliance inks, kind of just put the cap over it as you heat set, otherwise you get some of that, dry air kind of blowing onto it, and it'll start to dry that ink. Alright, I don't know if you can notice that in the camera, but the inks that are dry kind of faded out a little bit in terms of the visibility of them. But that is to be expected. Okay, so let's go ahead. I didn't dry everything completely, because I don't need to do that. Alright, we're going to ink up our Seaside Cove stamp right here. Okay, and then we'll do some masking again with this, okay? Just loosely mask off your rocks, like about like so. Yeah, I guess I need one for over here, potentially. I don't know how far this is going to extend, how far up and down I'm going to stamp it. We'll just kind of figure it out as we get into it. If I stamp it up a little bit higher, then I can have actually a little bit more shoreline right here, you know. And it's like cave represents something when the tide comes in. Or I could stamp it lower. I'll go down towards the bottom, I think. Go about like so. I want to leave room for some islands up here, so that's why I'm stamping it a little bit lower. I'll have like some islands, or an island out on the horizon. Okay, so I go left, work it into the middle. I'm standing when stamping this. Okay, and then I have these masks on each side, so that is kind of creating a little bit of a ledge, even though paper towels aren't terribly thick or anything like that, but it is still some additional height, you know, when stamping it out. All right, so see that right there? It's like Tom Hanks in a Castaway, that little cave he was sleeping in. Alright, now, trying to decide if I want to stamp those islands in there right now. I think let's wait for that. I think I like the idea of heat setting those, so let's go back in and heat set this, because we're going to create a horizon glow right on here. Actually, I could have done that beforehand in terms of the glow, then stamp that out. I don't know, maybe that would have been better, but this will work out just fine too. I didn't use the heat set. I've just kind of recently started doing that. And I thought, hey, that works, you know, pretty good. It's because I haven't really worked with a lot of pigment inks over the years and have just started doing that with the metallic papers. All right, so we have our format here, or our composition, layout, whatever you want to call it. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create this horizon glow in here. We want some the addition of lights and darks in here to really define our lighting scheme and to just bolster up the value range of the piece in general. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take, I've got all the stuff written all over this paper here, but let's see. Let me just grab some stuff here. Get all that written stuff out of there. All right, now masking off a straight line, there's no easier masking kind of methodology that we can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this right here, and we're going to go in with our white pigment ink right now. And you're going to use a cotton ball, okay? And then we're going to ink up. And what we're going to do is we're just going to create kind of this horizon glow in here, okay? My cotton ball is really a cheap one, so it's kind of falling apart on me just as I ink up, but, you know, if you're using a better quality one, it should be, I don't know, even better. Okay, so the horizon glow will be roughly around right here, so I'm adding this down. Now, try not to go too blobby with it if you have like a really juicy, wet white pigment ink pad. And a lot of times our pads are that because we just don't use them as much as like a black pad or something like that, you know. So I'm kind of adding this down. I'm adding a decent amount right there, and you can see what this is looking like right there, okay? So, and then what you do is you kind of dissipate that center glow with a little bit of a lighter touch as you move out from that center area, okay? So we'll call this maybe twilight or something like that. You can even drag like this if you want to. Drag very gently, okay? Imagine you're applying this on, you know, I don't know, some child or something like that, you know? You're applying some lotion on a sore they have, okay? Or something like that, okay? All right. Just keep utilizing this too. Now, if nothing's coming off, then go ahead and re-ink. But maybe re-ink kind of a little bit lighter, okay? Okay, so going off like this. So you want to really utilize your dry version of your applicator. Okay, now I'm going up in the sky like that. See how this is kind of creating those little clouds like that? You can do little swishes like this. But see, I'm kind of just staying in that one little area. And that's how I really transition these off really nicely, is because I work one thing at a time. Okay, for the most part, to create it. Okay, see this little swoosh that's kind of happening here? So I just kind of keep working it like that. Okay. It's not too bad. We've just gone with one inking too. You know what I mean? Haven't even re-inked it yet. I find that when I press a little bit harder, I get a little bit more ink out of that. So, okay. See that right there? It's like a twilight or something like that, right? Or you know what that looks like to me? It looks like either a moon has set or the moon is kind of rising out from the horizon like that. Okay, now, if that light is in the sky like that, chances are you would have some light down here reflecting off the surface of the water, right? So, what I'm going to do, let's just use this really dry version of this and go into the water. Look at this. I can't see anything with it. Nothing, right? With a few swipes. But can you see that where it's starting to develop? That's what you want right there, and that's where you have the control. Most of the times when people are doing this with a dry thing, now if it is all dry and you press in there and you can't see anything, then yeah, you need to get some more ink. But this is where you have so much more control, and this is where everyone says, "Oh, you make it look easy." Well, this is really easy, and it's under complete control when there's barely anything on here, and you're getting the marks you want through repetition as opposed to quickly and kind of more precariously, okay? So see this right here? I'm kind of dissipating, I'm kind of using this kind of wiping, it's like I'm sweeping the ink onto the surface here. Now sometimes I might press into this a little bit more to get kind of a finer line like that. I don't have a lot of control over it. I'm using this ball of, fibers here, yeah, but usually things don't appear that I don't want because if I go on there so very gently, it's just a very light version of that application. And if I don't like it, then I just don't put any more. But it's so light, just with one little swipe like that, that if I don't like it, then, it barely shows up. Okay? But see that right there? Just a really dry application, and we have our kind of horizon glow, and that's our lighting scheme right there. Just one inking up of the, our expensive applicator cotton ball. There's 200 in that bag, and that bag was super cheap. All right, so that looks about right. Okay. Now, here's what we're going to do now. This is where I really have a lot of fun, is I'll take another cotton ball. This one is used. I used it with my black already. Okay, I'm just going to use that one again, or you can go with a fresh one, whatever. And we're going to create our shadows now using our black pigment ink pad. It's the same color that we stamped our framing device rocks in. Okay, now here's what we want to do. You want to transition. Do you see how this is darker right here, and it transitions out and becomes from light to dark? Well, now we're going from dark out here on the perimeter. Okay. So you're adding more on the surrounding area in the shadows. You're working the exact opposite type of thing. You're going to work it from dark to light up here, meaning more ink to less ink. Okay? So it's darker out here, more ink, lighter in here, less ink, lighter in here, more ink, less light out here, less ink, okay? And now see how I'm just working this area. Notice how I'm not doing this, okay? That's not what you want. You just want to work one area and then work it in. That's where you get those transitions going from dark to light like that, because you're working that section, okay? All right, now to save myself some time, graphite black. I need a little bit more ink on this. I'm going to get some more graphite black re-inker fluid. I go through a lot of it just because it's so thick. Oh, where's my handy dandy ink spreader? Here it is. Amazon card, used gift card. All right. That looks good. Okay, ready to go. Be careful if you re-ink it, Now there's a whole lot of ink on there, okay? All right. So just kind of, now I am kind of spreading this around because I don't want too much of it built up right there, just because this is so sopping wet. So I've kind of spread it out there, and then what I'll do is I'll go back in and kind of spread that in a little bit more. Transition it, like what I was saying. Kind of wetter on the outside, drier on the inside, like that. Okay. I'm going to use a little bit of a swiping motion. Here's the thing, don't eradicate kind of your impressions of those rocks in there by just covering them all up. What you want is you want to kind of create that transition, so the rocks out here are going to be lighter because they're going to have less of this black pigment ink on them. Okay, right up here, use a little bit more. I think it was good that we heat set this because I'm not getting any kind of smearing or lifting of the imagery whatsoever. Okay, all right, like that. Do you see how this is kind of creating this illusion of light now? We're not really using light in this piece, but we're defining light through the use of shadow, through the use of value. You make things darker in a given piece, and everything else looks lighter by by contrast. So even the paper itself, the dark blue paper, was dark, to begin with, right? But now, by putting this black on here, that blue looks much lighter by contrast. Okay? Well, I don't know about much lighter, but lighter than it certainly did look. All right. Now, how dark do you take certain areas? I don't know. It's however way you want. What I might do is I might make this rock over here darker than this one. It doesn't have to be a uniform dark and then light, okay? You might oscillate things a little bit more for variation. Like, for example, right here, I can kind of come up in this area and make it a little bit darker, leave that rock lighter, go darker down here. It's whatever you want. Or, if you don't know what you want, then just add a little bit of tone onto it, and if you like it, then add more. You don't have to pre-decide any of this. You can just put a little bit of tone down there and say, okay, do you like that? Take a look at it from distance as you're developing it. If you want to add more, then add more. Kind of don't, you can have I mean, I know this was going to be a sea cave or something like that. It's not suddenly going to be kind of a meadow with a cabin or something like that in there now. But little things like shading, light, things like that, kind of leave things, I don't know, loosely kind of conceived so that you are open to potential changes as you're working on your pieces. Okay. All right, coming down on the bottom right here. All right. It's kind of taking on a little bit more of a mood of the sea, I think, with these shadows in here. Some of these rocks are lighter around on the perimeter where they are reflecting some of that dim moonlight in the piece. All right. Now, when I was saying that when this ink dries, it dries lighter than what it looks like. So you might want to heat set a little bit, just so that you have a kind of a good idea of what the piece will look like, how dark something is. If I dry it here and it looks like that could be a little bit darker, then, adjust accordingly. It's kind of interesting trying this because it gives me the feeling of embossing, which I guess isn't, it's certainly related to this because it's, using pigment inks on here, but I can see it just, change. It goes like this and it's wet and it goes like that and it dries. It kind of starts drying from the perimeter in. Okay, let's create a little bit more of a horizon with some black pigment ink. Now, I masked up here for the horizon, right? The horizon glow with the white. Let's mask off this. This is what you don't have to do this on the Seaside Cove, but I think it looks really good to kind of darken the horizon a little bit, or we can darken some of the edges here too, just like we have illuminated the interior. We can darken the edges too with a streak. So it's like you're streaking outward with white, but streaking inward with black. Okay, like that. Okay. me do it from this side here. I'm right-handed, so it's just easier for me to turn this around and, you know, streak in that same direction. Take some of that off. This kind of creates a little bit of a stronger separation between surface and sky. Like about like so. See that right there? It's kind of coming in from the outside like that. You can still see if this focuses in here. Let me put my hand here so it'll focus. Yeah. So you can still have a decent amount of detailing in there with the waves and the crashing waves and the surf. Okay. This looks pretty good. Let's go up in here in the sky too. Okay. See where I've done these swipes with the white? Let me go into these darker areas with a little bit of the black, okay? It's not really creating black streaks, it's just creating a very super light, like gray streak in there in between. And that in turn will help kind of blend in the white, I think. All right. All right, let's take a look at some islands. Let's get a little bit more, I don't know, maybe character out there in the water with some additional forms. I won't have too much space in here. I mean, if I could with, you know, much, maybe we'll use some smaller ones. Let me see here. Let's use this one right here. I'll have it coming in from the side. This is the cling foam version. I have them in unmounted too, but I thought, I want to use the cling foam version just to make things, to keep these kind of all consolidated like that. Okay, so this is hanging off right here, but I just won't stamp this portion. I'll just be going for this portion right here. Ink it up accordingly. Let's see, I need a little bit more ink on there. Alright, now we might need to mask off like this again. Okay, come like that. I'm masking off my cave. Am I working on screen good? I'm not trying to match it up exactly with the horizon. I can go lower than the horizon. I just don't want to go above the horizon, okay? That's the only thing you want to avoid. You don't want the your islands to be kind of floating in the sky, I don't think. Unless it's like some sort of a weird planet or something. Alright, so we have that. It kind of creates, doing this, it creates more context, I think, for the location, don't you think? I guess it could be a lake, but most likely not, due to the size of the size and distance. All right, let's go with this one right here. Okay. I might need to mask off a little bit on this side. Okay. Those going on. All right, let's use a really small one here too. I'll just use this block, being that I have it out right now. Let's go over here. Like so. Okay, and I'll put a little island out there, a little bit closer to the horizon. I think I might have double stamped as I was trying to figure out positioning. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, that's fine. They stand out a little bit too much against that background right now because they're super wet and so much darker than the, the positions that they're at. So let's heat set. I don't know, those islands out there, this location doesn't remind me of it, but it reminds me of Maine and Acadia with those kind of distant islands out there. An amazing park. It's one of the smaller national parks, I think, but to me, it was one of my favorite outdoor experiences. Hiking around that park in full color during the fall season, and just a really small amount of people out there on the trip. I felt I came back from that trip feeling like I had that entire place all to myself. Okay, I'm going to just go for a little bit of extra texture with these tiny rocks here. I'm just going to go down here in the foreground. Put some of these out in these waves. Okay. Like so. These, I don't know, that I probably didn't need to do that, but it just kind of creates a subtle little addition to that space down here. All right. I really like doing these. Just two ink scenes. To me, they feel like a painting or something like that. I guess it's because that white pigment ink shows up so well on the surface, and I don't know, just dragging that little cotton ball around. it looks like paint, to me. That cotton ball type of look. Okay, here's that tiny little sailboat that comes with the island set. You can leave it just as is, or I don't know, put other types of figures in there. Where you stamp the little sailboat kind of creates a size relationship with these islands in the back. If I stamp this way up here, you're saying that these little islands are really tiny. Okay, the lower you stamp it is reflective of the size of the islands in the distance. Okay, so generally I'm going to stamp it a little bit closer, lower to us, which represents something a little bit closer to us. But I want to put them in the light. I don't want to have that sailboat in the dark, so I'll put it fairly close to center where that lighting on the water is. See that what happened there? Stamping that little sailboat in there too, in black, doesn't it make the white around it seem lighter by contrast by having that little element in there like so? See how that horizon glow is going in here? So see that horizon glow, we put that in there before those islands. That's why I stamped these islands last, because if I was streaking that kind of lighting on the surface out, at this point in time I'd get that, that white into the islands, but no, they're just sitting right on the surface like that. Okay, now I was looking for my hanging branches, hanging leaves stamp. Let me go and find that. Okay, we have our leaves hanging right here, which make a pretty good addition to this piece right here. There is separation between the rooftop, the cave rooftop, and the sky right here. But there isn't that much separation, is there? So we're going to separate a little bit more in terms of creating a little bit of distance. And this will hang down like it's kind of the shoreline or whatever, and you got some foliage hanging down into that. But it'll come down into this lighter area, and that kind of creates a little bit more space that way, from a textural standpoint and from a value standpoint. So if you've watched my previous video where I was talking about creating kind of a range or contrast, this will be a textural contrast between the cave roof and the sky, but you're also creating contrast by just stamping something darker against something that's lighter. It's still pretty dark in there because it's not real, light, even with that light pigment ink in there, the little swooshes in the sky, but this is quite a bit darker though, especially when it's wet like this. It's creating a lot of separation. It won't create nearly that separation when dry though. I should get the smaller version of this and use that too. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that here. There's the larger version of it, like that. So it's kind of hanging branches like that. It's creating some separation on that roof. I need a smaller one though too. This is creating a kind of, I don't know, uniform size like that. Let's go get this. Okay, I have my smaller hanging branches right here. Okay, looks like that. So by relation, large one, small one. They're good in conjunction with one another. You can use one or the other, but this will create hopefully a little bit more depth in the foreground area by using two different sizes. Okay, kind of do it offset. You can kind of overlap a little bit, just kind of create as much variation as you can. Kind of spread it out a little bit. You don't want to kind of picket fence it where it's evenly kind of spaced out like that. Kind of really vary it. Where the larger one is, I'll stamp a lot of that. You can kind of stamp it lower too, like it's really hanging down too, like this. You can kind of create it like that. I didn't mask off right there. Let me put a little bit of a tone right there. Or let's see this. Let's kind of blend that in a touch. Okay, it's kind of growing out from between the rocks a little bit there. Kind of like a creeping vine probably would. Okay. Alright, how's that look? Does that kind of create a little bit more space there too, between the background and foreground? Kind of gives the cave a little bit more character, doesn't it? Let's heat set that now. Looks pretty good, kind of darker black, but it's not going to stay that way. So, that being said, if I spray seal this, all of this will get a little bit darker, so it might be more reminiscent of kind of a wetly, a freshly stamped area when sprayed. All right, that is looking awfully fun. I really like that texture in there. I might have to add a little bit more texture here too. Let's go for the reeds. Do you guys have reeds large? If you don't, it's one to kind of consider. I use it all the time. It's thin enough and it has a decent amount of grace, and it kind of creates kind of a visual lead-in I've kind of tilted my reeds in certain directions specifically and layered it so that it can lead the viewer's eye to a given location by stamping it in the foreground, but yet not obscure the things in the background. So it's been designed to enhance what you can see in there and to give kind of depth and illusion. Alright, something like that. I tell you what, I'll put some of it behind the rock like that, and I'll put some of it in front of the rock like this, okay? So we've just kind of sandwiched that rock in there. Alright. Let's just go with that. I think that should do it right there. Okay. I don't want to do too much. You wouldn't have too much kind of like this foliage growing deep into the cave because it wouldn't be getting as much light. But like this, it's kind of leading our viewer's eye right to that sailboat and off into the horizon. Okay. Alright, this has a decent amount of mood to it. Grab your white paint pen, a white gel pen, whatever you use for that type of mark, and let's try some of this in there. If you have some paint pens, you can use that too. Sometimes, like this in a darker background, maybe it's just too light. So, you know, you can use something else, like a, you know, maybe like a blue or something like that. Something that will harmonize with the paper and make for a less kind of extreme mark, maybe a gray, you know what I mean? But let's just go with the white here. Let's see how this looks here. What this is called, it's called specular light. It's light that's brighter than white. It's like little reflecting, kind of little sparkles of light. That really stands out. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to use it very sparingly on here, okay? Let's get it flowing here. I just kind of wiped off the tip. When I do that, you can kind of give me a smaller little dot here. It really stands out now. It wouldn't stand out. It's not just the white pen. It's how dark kind of the paper is, okay? Alright, so it really stands out, doesn't it? Get it flowing there. Alright. I'm going to put one or two stars up here in the sky, too. It's like, you know, the stars are just coming out. Well, maybe a little few more. I thought that looked really good. Okay. You have some stars kind of twinkling up here in the sky, like so. And you have that shimmering light down below. Okay, really stands out, but that's what it looks like, kind of at distance. Alright, now, what I was thinking about when I was adding that white in there was, can I add a little pigment ink white over the top of it? Let's try that out, but I need to dry that sailboat. The sailboat was quite wet. I guess it was because it was so small and you stamp it in there like so. Alright, let's add some pigment ink in very targeted areas. I'm going to go with a Q-tip right here. We already did kind of the large areas with the cotton ball. So let's just use a cotton ball on a stick in the form of a Q-tip here. You want to go with a very light touch with this, okay? Again, I don't want big blobs of ink. Everyone uses way too much. And I have to be careful of that too, When I say that, I'm talking about myself too, especially after I just re-ink something like that, for a few times after that. All right, so let's kind of create a little bit of a atmosphere. See that sailboat right there? See the front of it? How I've kind of gone over it a little bit with some pigment ink. It kind of puts it in a little bit of this fog. And doing that, let's do it to a couple of these islands. Let's put them in a little bit of a fog on one side of them at the base or something like that. See this kind of lighting on the interior here? The interior of the card, the center of the card. Let's bring some of that lighting into a couple of these islands like this. And on this one right here, where the lighting is coming to the right of it, we will right side illuminate that little island right there in a little bit of fog. Okay, kind of creates that added little touch that is very indicative of, the coast anywhere. You have that large body of water and, having kind of that fog rolling in like that. Come up here and some of these crashing waves. The waves right down here, fairly subdued because I didn't illuminate it all the way up to that. Let's put a little bit of light on those waves, okay? I'm just going to barely tap this in here with a very dry brush approach, okay? I don't want this, standing out too much. In fact, that might be a little bit too much, so I'll just dab it off like that. And when that dries, it's going to dry darker looking than what it looks like right now. Let's go up into some of these stars, or a couple of them, and I'll just make them a little bit, that's a little bit too much on here. And I'll just lightly dab a little bit of pigment ink over the top to make it glow. Make a couple of these stars stand out a little bit more than the others. Just for variation, textural variation. See, I tapped it, and it, I don't know, several taps kind of makes a couple of those stars glow for a textural difference right there. Those were very sharp little points of light, and you increase the textural range to soft on those with, a really easy little touch and effect. You can make some of these little specular lights here in the water a little bit softer as well. It barely shows up, but I think that it's kind of effective overall, even if it's on a kind of a subconscious level. To have those little things like that glowing, it just puts that little nice touch into it. You can make some of them glow, but make it look very, very dim. A very dim glow to, to look different. Right there, that's different than that glow right there. See it? That one's like the strongest glow, but see that right over there? Doesn't that kind of stand out a little bit? I mean, if you kind of look at it. But see that right there? And this is what's fun about this paper right here, too. We have this look like this, okay? But then it changes because it's so reflective, and it's a iridescent paper, so look at that. So that's what's fun about stamping on metallics at times. We don't have some of the possibilities of different color, variations in here. I wouldn't be able to get, I don't know, like a pure pink or something like that. Maybe if I put white in there and then added pink over it or something like that. But just overall, certain things are established with a given dark color like that. But with the metallics like this, you get the added bonus of such, I think, drastic change between something that's reflecting so much light and then we get that light off of it, and look how that looks different. Or I'll go like this, and look how much darker it is up in the sky now, you know, like that. You know, but this is, I don't know, I think that looks really good like that too. But look at that, see that contrast? It's not so reflective. So, I don't know, you can play around with different colors of things like iridescent papers. You don't have to go with the Stardream brand. Um, Less contrast is going to look a little bit different, but it doesn't mean that it will look bad or anything like that. This just happens to be the one that I had. I want to get some purple reflective surfaces and maybe red. I think this would look really good in red. Or what if this was like an emerald green? I think that would look really cool too. So all kinds of different things to explore potentially. But there we have it. There's our Stardream and kind of in-cave compositional layout. You can put any types of things like this, you know, and take off these vines hanging down and have a cave like this and have a kind of a winter wonderland back in the, you know, the background. You know, put a couple bears here in the foreground or something like this, and this is their cave or something like that, their den, anything like that. Framing devices like this could be kind of an instant framing window for your pieces, and then if you kind of actually mat them and whatnot, that's, you know, this can be your first frame, you know, in terms of double framing or something like that. I'd still kind of double mat it or something like that, you know, for to bring out certain things like the blues in here or the metallics, like, you know, the iridescent thing. But look at that, kind of catches that light, that rock down there. But it's reflecting that light, then it goes into the darkness like that. So this right here, you can really see those rocks right in here. You know, the detail is showing pretty good, considering it's black on dark blue. But then, you know, it can really go into complete darkness like that, depending on what angle you know, the viewer is looking at it. So, I don't know, it's just fun for the viewer to receive something like this, I believe, because it's an interactive type of piece. Okay, so anyways, if you stamped with me, I want to thank you for stamping along with me. I had fun doing this. Always fun stamping with others. You know, stamping is kind of it's a solitary type of exercise and paper crafting. Everyone has their tools that we're working with at home, but I think everyone likes getting out once in a while and stamping with others. So if you've stamped along with me, kind of in this virtual format, I think I would hope that you had some fun. I did as well. So if you have any questions, drop me a note in the comment section. And we'll see you on the next Stamp Along.